So, so welcome back to a edition of the Theatres of Dreams Extra Time. We've been away for 3 weeks. My fault. I've been in the Vietnam is red, by the way, and it's Manchester United red. I've been away there, meeting lots of people who all seem to support Manchester United, but probably not for long given current form. But with me as usual on Extra Time is Don Bars and Richard Irvine, representing the blue side of Manchester and the red side of Liverpool. Now, guys, how are we feeling after 3 weeks of football, which we haven't discussed? Many games, a few finals as well. How are we feeling at the moment?
Let's start with you, Rich.
Well, yeah, let's obviously a little bit bruised and battered. Obviously, let's cover it quickly that Liverpool astoundingly failed to score at home against PSG after getting such an amazing result over in Paris, a smash and grab. No one thought it was going to be an easy return leg, but I think they thought the Anfield leg would be enough to, would get over the line after such a remarkable, like I say, smash and grab in Paris. But it wasn't to be, and you just knew that when it went to extra time, it just wasn't going to be, and it was going to go to penalties. And I think everybody was didn't have a good feeling about that. And he passed the second ball to Nunes, and I think people then started to think this is not going to go our way. Now I think so. We've dealt with that. By the way, there's no point moaning, but I thought that was a terribly difficult tie. I think Dom pointed this out before: winning the league, losing only one game, and then you get PSG. It didn't seem to be fair. But then again, someone reminded me: Arsenal beat PSG 2-0 at the Emirates, so they came good at the right time, I think, PSG. But then, of course, I think they took that hangover to the final because it seemed strange anyway. The crowd seemed quieter. I know Newcastle have been given all those scarves by their owners, but it seemed to be subdued right from the start. And within 5-10 minutes, this is unusual. They haven't settled. Salah's not getting a touch. And really, apart from the last 10 minutes, Liverpool just didn't really turn up now. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I think they had literally the metaphorical stuffing knocked out of them from that result. I think it really wounded them. And you could say, yeah, professionals, they should know how to pick themselves up and go again. But I think Newcastle just had that kind of, you just thought it was written in the stars for them. It almost was actually from the semi-final onwards, really, I think.
Well, how much was, I didn't get to see the game because as I was traveling, but how much was it about Newcastle and the way they played and taking the game on versus Liverpool not maybe turning up? Because
I'm going to hand this over to Dom because he's been saying for a while about their midfield, and I think Dom will now. I'm going to pass it on to Dom, but I think all those players that he's been talking about for so long all played really, really well, and Liverpool's midfield looked really, really leggy. So I'll pass that over to Dom.
It was the perfect storm, wasn't it? I think I got genuinely, not taking the mickey, I don't think it was so much about what Liverpool didn't do. I really genuinely think it was what Newcastle did do. Now, that could easily spill over with that emotion. 9 Wembley defeats on the trot, 9 they've had. To go again, with a 70-year hoodoo over them, right? It could easily have gone wrong again and they could have got done 4-0, right? But Eddie Howe and the gang, they kept it together, and every single player was at least 9 out of 10. And it just all went right, and they managed to channel that emotion. I mean, it got some random stat for you. Do you know that if you watch that game and afterwards, and everybody would say that Liverpool got a good spanking, really. It could have been more than 2-0 before you pulled it back to 2-1. It should have been, really. And they were so dominant. They weren't dominant. They had 30% of the ball.
Newcastle.
30.
Yeah. Newcastle.
That's all they had. But they were so effective and they are so powerful in the middle. When them 3 play, I've said this earlier on in the season, not sounding like a clever clogs, it's the best midfield in the country.
Yeah.
It's better than City's. It's better than Liverpool's. When it's like that, Tonali, Joe Linton and Bruno would get into anyone's team. And as a 3, they've got this blend that when they're on it, they absolutely dominate you. And poor old McAllister and the guy I can never pronounce.
Slobbersley.
Thank you. They just got overwhelmed. But you know what? On Sunday, that Newcastle team would have beat Madrid. They would have beat because they were that good. And everything went right. They've got a great striker. They've got a great squad. We played Newcastle very quickly. About a month ago, they came to our place and we did them 4-0.
Yeah.
Like really odd. No Joe Linton. No Joe. Did you see every time they made a tackle, he was jumping up and scored a goal? I mean, it was emotional goosebumps for neutrals. Took me back to City when we beat United in the semi-final in 11 before we played Stoke. The semi more than the final. To go to Wembley and turn up and win, I felt so happy for the Geordies. But do you know what? We joke about the Liverpool thing. I don't think the wheels came off it at all. I think you were incredibly unlucky that you walked into the 2 probably most formed teams in the world, right, at the same time. You got PSG, who have suddenly gone white hot, like you quite rightly say. You got them at a time when they've found form. And then on top of that, you then get Newcastle on a day where they just can't do anything wrong. So it's amazing.
I'm looking at the stats from the game. It's quite interesting because Liverpool dominated possession at 65 versus 35.
There you go.
But in terms of shots, Newcastle had 17 shots to Liverpool's 7.
Liverpool didn't have a shot on target in the first half.
Shots on target. You only had 2 in total versus 6 for Newcastle, and attempts outside the box. So actually, it was 6 to Newcastle, none to you. But in terms of the game, I mean, in terms of passing, Liverpool dominated the passing, dominated the accurate passing, dominated the back passing. But obviously, Newcastle just took their chances when they got them. But I think. You know, what this means now for Newcastle fans is, where do you take this now? You've got to build on this. And that is something Eddie Howe has to do. I think for Liverpool, you know, clearly the league should be done and dusted. It's been a bruising couple of weeks. They've now got to consolidate and they've got to just tie it down, really.
Yeah, but they've got Everton next. Everton at home. So that's not going to be easy. That's not going to be easy.
You lost at Goodison, didn't you? You lost. Oh, no, you drew.
No, it was that 2-2.
Yeah.
Well, could I just drop in there? So Everton did this to Liverpool. Newcastle definitely did it, because we've not even mentioned Dan Burn in all this, right? Who had the game of his life and scored a goal, and he's the local hero, which again is just a great story. But
came into football late in his life.
Yeah, he did. But the directness, which is another topic altogether about City's demise and possession football, which I think we should bring up as a subject another week as a project. But this direct approach of not getting caught, you know, the high press of a Liverpool or a whatever team. Well, if you're getting rid of the ball quick, and I don't mean agricultural going long, I'm talking about percentage football, playing it safe. Van Dijk facing his own goal, any defender facing his own goal cannot be as good, and he's in more trouble. And all of the back 4 for Liverpool got found out, but any team would when it's a simple ball behind, and it worked a treat. And that's where
I tell you who they didn't miss: Trent, because is it Konzai playing at right back? We didn't seem to have that fabulous pass, that piece of movement. Salah wasn't in the game, and I just thought afterwards, that's what Trent brings.
Offensively, you missed that, but you couldn't get hold of the ball. So, but I would just say as well, Newcastle now, right, what they're going to do, they'll either go 2 ways. They'll either party and everything will be an anticlimax for a couple of weeks and they'll get some silly defeats, or this will be the belief that club needs to step on. I'm not saying they're going to win the league in the next 2 years, but they're a monster. And to win something with the manager they've got, the squad they've got, I tell you what, City and Chelsea have to be incredibly careful now, because they would be the team with the belief and the consistency to really go for it now and pick up that 4th spot. I know that it goes further down, but my goodness, they could really be powerful now for the rest of the season. It wouldn't surprise me.
Football is so fickle, Rodney. A couple of weeks ago, all the press were talking about, Liverpool, this amazing forward line. Salah, Jota, Nunes, Gakpo. After these 2 defeats, they're going, maybe Salah isn't that great. Nunes, rubbish. Jota, not consistent. Gakpo, not consistent. Suddenly, everybody turns on, but suddenly they haven't got a decent, poor Salah. He's got nobody alongside him. A sad figure. All this business. Yeah, I think most people agree that Nunes, after the season, probably would move on. But Jota's been unlucky with injury. Gakpo has been obviously injured, but suddenly now they're saying people like him saying, "Oh, we need 2 new strikers." You know what I mean? It's so fickle, football.
Well, I mean, football is fickle. That's the one thing you can guarantee about football. I think what's interesting about this is that Liverpool have been trotting on so well. With the new manager as well, there's a lot of transition there, and to compete in 3 competitions, never mind more. It just goes to show the level of concentration. You have to be lucky with injuries, etc., etc. And the Premier League is massively competitive. When teams turn up, they can beat anybody at any day.
But the narrative now seems to be in the press and social media that Liverpool are just winning a bad week Premier League this year. It seems a bit unfair to me.
I think that is unfair. I think.
Yeah, that narrative is it's the banter, isn't it? So we would get it for being a plastic club with no fans and empty seats, even when we win a quadruple or a treble or whatever, right? And so everybody wants that narrative. And the only thing we've got against you in the league is to say, well, you might as well have your parade now, because by the time we get to May, no one's really going to give 2 hoots. So it's always better to win it with emotion on the last day of the season, like Roy of the Rovers style. Yeah. Look, take nothing away from it. Winning the title in any season is very, very commendable. So, joking aside, the worthy champions. They've been the best team. It's not for Liverpool to have to make everybody else play at their best. They haven't. But that is down to Liverpool's organisation and recruitment for 2 years, when the others haven't done it right. Fact. And injuries. And you always need some luck to win a title. Anyway, you always need some luck. We got loads of it. We weren't the perfect team. Goals off the line.
But it all comes back. I mean, it's karma for me. I think I gave you stick last year when you were in 4 competitions and you just ended up winning the league. It's basically just happening to us.
Yeah.
However, Liverpool will have to be careful. Liverpool will be watching Man City and thinking, we could win the league this year, but then we could drop off. And so they'll be looking at this very carefully to see how they manage next season and who they're going to get in. A bit like Man City, because Man City will also want to get back on the top. United, I think, have got more of a rebuild job. But Liverpool will be saying, how do we address... Well, first of all, they've got these 3 players, haven't they? All out of contract. Are they going to keep any of those? All this presumption that you're going to keep Van Dijk and Salah, but lose Trent. I think you could easily end up losing 3, or maybe just keeping Van Dijk. I mean, who knows? So it's going to be very interesting.
Let's switch track.
Plus, going back to Newcastle, sorry. Will Isak stay at Newcastle? Because he's obviously hot property. But will Newcastle convince him to extend his contract? Because they want, if they get Champions League, Isak might be tempted to stay with an improved offer.
So let's just turn to the league, because Liverpool clearly are well ahead, 12 points ahead of Arsenal. So you don't really expect them to slip up. And City have improved somewhat after a bit of a slippy early start. 2-2 against Brighton Hove Albion recently. But you're now sitting in 5th position. I mean, you would assume that you're probably there to take Chelsea's position, Dom. What do you think?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about United.
Yeah, look, I went to the Brighton game last week. We got a lucky draw. We were ahead twice. It's moments of quality because we've got quality. It was mainly Mamouche, actually, who just did 2 things. But I promise you, we're not playing well. I went to Spurs away. We won 1-0. Spurs are terrible. We made hard work of it. Brighton, we've got results here and there, and we're building up points, but we are absolutely no better in that league than 4th or 5th. Forest are clear, let's be honest, as a neutral. That's great for the game. Forest they beat us 1-0 and they've kicked on again. So this is about fourth. If Forest can get third, I'd argue he's manager of the year. Richard disagree, but what Nunes will have done to have got Forest third is absolutely sensational.
Yeah,
sensational. And this is a season about the other teams. Of course, Liverpool will win the title and will quite rightly take the plaudits and the congratulations. But the narrative this season is how well all the top 10 have done to kick on, to close the gap. Because that's what's been most noticeable, is it's not been a Farmers League. My goodness, these teams are fantastic. And we have got such a hard job. Newcastle, Bournemouth. I mean, Bournemouth, they would have said to me 10 years ago, Bournemouth are going to be a threat to the Champions League. They played brilliant football. I worry to death that we're going to get knocked out in the FA Cup down there in that next round. And then it's open season for the FA Cup as well. So the narrative for me is it's anybody's. Relegation is done. The title is done. Arsenal are clear. Forest are clear. But everything else is up for grabs. Yeah. And it's who fancies to put some form together.
Yes, and putting form together, let's just turn to my beloved Manchester United, because it does seem like, that Leicester game was a potential banana skin for us, and it does seem like there's some of the tactics that the manager's starting to bring in might be coming off. Now I'm terrible at remembering games, but that was, for me, that was a convincing win, and quite a relief actually to go down there and beat them 3-0. Did you watch the game at all? Did you see any aspects of it?
Did you, Rich, or not?
I think I just saw the goals.
Listen, great. I think United have been decent the last 10 days or so. They got a great result against Arsenal.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Let's not take anything away from that. I know Arsenal have been struggling for goals. It's a great result. Leicester. Now, of course, on paper, those should be games that you can win, and you did. But Fernandes is playing like a hero again, leading the kids, and Amarin's just accepted to change his style this season to be more accommodating of the squad he's got, and it's working. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to go on an unbeaten run for 5 games, but there must be a better sense of feel-good after the last couple of results, and he's scoring goals. Must be.
Do you know what really was a major impact to us was watching the young lad Aiden Heaven go off to that injury the other day against Leicester, because you feel for him on an individual level, and he was just coming good in the team. He was starting to really relax into it.
Is that an ankle injury?
It's but
it looked a bad one. They didn't want to show it, did they?
No, they didn't. But the good thing is, apparently, he walked away with a boot from the ground afterwards. So, hopefully, maybe not as bad as it was. But these are the sort of things that can, it really disrupts you. And for me, I feel for him, because he was starting to come in good into the squad, and we need players like him to come in. But off on the pitch, not a bad couple of weeks for us. Off the pitch, United. Flipping heck. I mean, the amount of noise and the fans' forums, the amount of noise on that, the proposed price rises for tickets, for season tickets next year. And
of course, you were in Vietnam, but I just like to say, roll up. There's a circus coming to town.
You've been saving that one up.
Hey, you've obviously seen the stadium. I think it looks magnificent.
You like a circus? I mean, who doesn't like a circus?
But I mean, look at it. It's futuristic. It does look a little bit circus-esque. I get you on that. But I have to say, in terms of modern stadia, I think it takes the concept of modern stadia further afield,
Maybe it's just because it looks a bit, with all that kind of awning stuff. People are already saying that, how's that going to be? How are you going to keep that kind of thing looking clean? I know it's meant to channel away water, and apparently it's going to absorb energy. I don't know, but it seems almost a bit too much. Obviously, it's gone through Sir Norman Foster, architecture, who most people seem to think is one of the best architects that we've ever produced.
Someone like him doesn't put his name to check that's not going to be seriously considered and put through. So, it's interesting, right? Because
the 3 spires apparently are meant to personify the fork on your badge when looked at a certain angle. And apparently they're going to, when they're lit up, apparently you'll be able to see them from Liverpool. So I think that's the idea. Apparently, I don't know.
I mean, I like it. There's been a lot of chat in some of the fans forums, some of which I pulled back from because I find some of it's a little bit unresearched discussion and overly emotional. But it's been a weird week because weird 3 weeks, because one way you got £2 billion project being announced by the club to build
at least, and let's just say at least, because
but
that could spiral.
Multiple billions, right? Multiple billions. And on the other end, we're having to lay off staff members. And I think, the way I look at it is it's a bit like, you've got your salary coming in every month, and you manage to get yourself a 200, 300, £1,000 mortgage, but your salary isn't actually allowing you to go out every week. Right, and you're tapping into your overdraft, and it doesn't mean that you can't get the mortgage. It just means that you've got to manage the cash flow, if you like. And what I think is happening in United is that the Glazers have focused on the asset value of the club, the wealth of the club. They haven't been looking at the detailed cost and expenditure of the club, and they haven't been the ones who've wanted to lay off all these people, so they've left it now to Ineos to do. Ineos are taking the hit, and suddenly Jim and Ineos are like the big bad wolf, and now when it comes to jobs and people's livelihoods, you never want to see this happening. But I do think some of the reporting has been a little bit inaccurate in a way, But
I mean, when asked the question, how are you going to afford to build this? He just says, "Well, we'll get. I'm convinced we'll get the finance." So that you basically, know more about this than I do, you two. But you're basically saying this is Manchester United. They'll be queuing up to lend us money because they'll know they'll recoup the money eventually.
Well, it's an asset.
Exactly.
It's an asset. So you like use that example of the house. If you're earning a few quid and you do your affordabilities and all the rest of it, but this will be different because they'll build it for X and it'll be worth X, right? Well, so of course, there's not many buyers out there for a football stadium, but fundamentally, it just goes on the balance sheet as an asset, and it sits in a different pot of money. United, the problem, I think the issue really, Rod, is you get mixed messages from the PR department. For me, hopefully they've gone, because that's where it's going wrong. 1 minute you can, to the man on the street, they see you can spend £1 billion plus whatever on a stadium and it's a great project. And then 5 minutes later, they're paying for the dinners in the canteen. So the mixed messaging for the average person on the street, unless you're working in an accounting environment, most people don't understand that concept, Rod, right? I just think PR is wrong. United had too many staff. Nobody talks about the fact that they, for years, over-recruited, and actually, as much as he's gone about it not very cleverly from a PR perspective, and when he gets interviewed by people like Gary Neville, who comes up with some little simple idea for generating money to cover staff dinners, and Jim goes, "Oh yeah, that's actually a good idea." It doesn't look good on telly, but fundamentally, there were too many people there who were pottering around, stealing a living, pretending to be busy moving bits of paper around in an office, probably. I don't mean that horribly, but they will have been. All businesses have it, and they're just cutting the fat.
Exactly, and actually the owners previously, or the majority owners still, Glazers, never wanted to take that on because it was a PR disaster, and they already were a PR disaster. And at the end of the day, the asset value of the club was going up and up and up, and that's all they're really interested in. So they're losing a few quid out the back end, but they were making so much money on the top end that they didn't want to address that. Very, very handy to have somebody come along, sell him 30% of the club, that legitimizes your investment at 7 billion, and say to him, by the way, why don't you go and sort out that cost issue? It's called outsourcing. It's what you do when you don't want to own the issue. You want to give the issue to somebody else. And of course, somebody like Jim and Ineos, they are detailed people. That's the industry they were in. They look at the balance sheet, they look at the OPEX, they look at the cash flow, but it's been really badly handled from a communication point of view. And
it's going to be a long way off, though, isn't it? It's going to be, they reckon, 5 years to build, but most people think there won't be a spade in the ground for another 2 years. So that's 7. So add on another year or two. It could be 8 or 9 years before we see a new stadium there.
It could be 8 or 9 years before we have a team worthy of the stadium, Richard. So, look, I like the ambition, and I think it's been very badly handled in terms of the comms. And of course, with Manchester United, as in Liverpool and City, people queue up and can't wait to get into you. To try to undermine you at times. And I think United actually were a little bit naive in the way that they managed the comms on this, personally. But
I like how they've gone big. They've gone for 100,000. Newcastle fans have been a bit critical, apparently, because they've come up with plans for a new stadium up there, and it's not significantly more. It's about another 10,000. And they're saying, come on, if you want to build a new stadium, go big. We can fill way more than that. And I wish that we could even go on, even if it's United, it'd be nice to think that England had a stadium even bigger than the Camp Nou. They always seem to have that over. They've got it over Madrid. They've got that extra 10,000. But it would have been nice if it's even gone the biggest in the world. But obviously, architecturally, you're restricted. Maybe, I don't know.
Let's turn our attention to international, because this is the first weekend of we're going to see the new England under the new English German manager, of course. I haven't watched seen the squad announcements. What as English guys? What did you think of the squad, guys?
Well, there was one massive surprise, and Dom knows what I'm going to say here, but no one saw Henderson being included. He hasn't even been very settled at Ajax. He hasn't. I don't think the press have really even been mentioning him at all, apart from him being disgruntled. And suddenly Tuchel brings him in from the cold, saying that he wants his experience and blah blah. But a lot of people think it's a little bit backward thinking. But then you get the odd pundit saying, "Oh no, actually, if you think about it, it's genius. He's going to be there. He's with the young players and settle them in." And I'm just thinking, And then is it Morgan Gibbs-White was excluded, but is only now being included because of an injury to
Palmer.
Paul Palmer, yes. So a lot of people were moaning that he'd been excluded and Henderson had been included, but now he's got included anyway. Makes it a little bit.
But Rich, he's got took out again this morning. So this morning they had to leave. The rules are, for whatever reason, they had to cut the squad back down. So they took 3 out this morning.
Yeah, Gibbs-White,
Ramsdale, and Ramsdale and Kwanzaa, I understand.
Right.
And Gibbs-White has been put in to take back out. I mean, I think that's a little bit of an insult. He's just messing the lad around.
Yeah.
I don't understand that, but anyway, that seems a farcical thing to do, to bring him for a few days training to then cut him. I'd rather not go, to be brutally honest. But anyway,
I like how the manager's been speaking. He's been saying, he said, the problem, I watched the Euros and they looked too scared to lose rather than being brave enough to go for it. So maybe he is going to have a little bit of a different mentality. I saw Robert Huth commenting on TalkSport saying he doesn't even get the fact that there's a German manager there, and he, as a German player himself, he says there's no way Germany would employ an English manager. But then he says we've got lots of great young German managers coming through. But interestingly, he said if you got to a semi-final and it was against Germany, and you had a German manager, and the German manager, how would you really want England to beat your home nation? I'm not against Tuchel at all, but it was interesting hearing Huth as a German respected player, Premier League winner, obviously a great footballer, saying that he doesn't get it really. But we'll see.
It's a World Cup qualifier, so it's an important game. Do you see anything other than an England win against Albania?
No, the win. I think the Henderson thing is odd. Now it's not like Pirlo or coming back, or somebody like that coming back into an Italian team. It's, without being rude to him, he's been a great professional, but it's Henderson. I can only assume He doesn't. He does what he wants to do, doesn't he? The manager, and he doesn't care what other people think. He's a results-based man, and what he did at Chelsea, he won him a Champions League in COVID, and without it being a fantastic team, he's a tournament manager. He's obviously looked and gone, right, Henderson. And maybe it's a bit of an indictment on centre midfielders in the country, because he's gone back and picked him to just probably steady the ship. Not quite a coach, almost a player coach. So he's got a voice out on the pitch with experience. I get that. I think if there was other people, maybe like, for me, Adam Wharton at Palace, I'm a great fan of, but he's been injured for so long, he can't come in. And they've made the 21s, if you followed that, incredibly strong. He's got like 7 players in there that are first teamers in the Premiership. Do you know what I mean? They've put lads in there, but we just don't have, after Rice and Bellingham, then actually, who is the centre midfielder?
Do you not find, though, today, international football, though, that managers are now trying to build squads, if you like, to try to build a spine for consistency, and then bring in players occasionally, either because they're in form or there's an injury, but they like to have consistency. So you're not always playing for your place every single time. There's certain players who will always almost get into squad as long as they're playing half decently.
Yeah, basically. Steady team. It's a team, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think you're right. It's a club within a club almost to try to win something. I mean, Rashford's back. We've not mentioned that. He's had a good time. He's had a good time at Villa. Yeah. But again, it shows you that there's an issue. There's an issue with the next level maybe coming through, because he's got back in without having to do a great deal. No. Let's be honest, right? Not criticising him as a player, but he's only had to have a couple of good weeks and he's back in the fold. So
he's almost got back in just by playing football, because he just wasn't playing any football at Man United.
I think don't get me wrong. I think he's worthy of being involved. I think he's a good player. He's ruined himself off the pitch and all the stuff, but I don't know. The squad doesn't fill me with what's he going to do? I like Gibbs White. I'd have been a bit braver and played him, because the lad's got goals and assists galore this season and links things up. Foden's off the boil. The lad at Tottenham, what's he called? The number 10 there, Maddison. He's been injured and out of form badly.
Yeah.
Who's your 10? Well, it's going to be Bellingham, isn't it? That tells you everything. If Henderson's in, Bellingham's the 10.
But Dom, you can't blame Tuchel in a way, in that he's got he can't take too many risks. It's his first competitive game. It's his first proper camp with the players. He's got to look and understand how it is. So I think he's been steady Eddie, if you like, and that's probably okay.
I still think it blindsided most journalists. I think that most people thought Henderson. It's almost thinking that he's been to Saudi, he's gone to Ajax. It's almost he's in semi-retirement. Really. That's the way I looked at it. When he was playing for Liverpool and raising the trophy, that seems a long time ago now.
Yeah,
but 4 or 5 years.
Again, maybe he'll be good around the camp, and he doesn't. Yeah. It's going to play. It's going to start, and you might get to the point where you want to shore the game up, because they've got to play later on in the week.
I think I'll watch it tonight. I think I will watch. Oh no, I'm going to a comedy gig tonight. I won't watch it, but I'll have to watch the highlights. But I think as Tuchel's first game, I think it will be interesting.
I was going to say,
it will be interesting.
When she said I'm going to a comedy gig, I was going to say, are you at Anfield tonight? But it's not exactly comedy.
No, actually, football related, I am going to Anfield tomorrow with the family. We're going to watch Liverpool Legends versus Chelsea Legends. I think it's a charity event. Full house. It was a chance to, no jokes please, a chance to go to Anfield, because tickets obviously are difficult to get, and I managed to get there were some left, not a lot, so it should be a full house. And you'll get to see Dudek, Hippier, Coit, Gerrard, Crouch. Crouch was quite interesting because we used to go watch him at Stoke as well. So it'll be, I think Zola's managing the Chelsea team, so it'll be fun. It'll be nice to see. We went, as I mentioned before in this podcast, we went to see the stadium tour, but to actually go and see a match there will be good fun.
No, and those things are a really good way of bringing the family in. You can get the tickets; they're a bit cheaper as well, and have a good day out. And £27 per adult and £7 for the children each.
it's not a mega expensive, but a way just to see and hear the anthems and of course see Gerard again would be great as well.
It all helps with the indoctrination of the kids, doesn't it? That's what they've got to keep them online.
Yeah. But it's Red Nose Day today, and Oscar's gone dressed in his red Liverpool kit. So that's good.
Is it Red Nose Day?
You're bringing him up, yeah.
Right. Well,
Red Nose Day today, yeah.
There's a couple of players I'd like to give a bloody nose to, but that's a totally different thing. So next week, when we're going to come back, I'm off to Northern Ireland for 5 days to see my mommy. But we'll be back next week. And when we come back, Dom, you're going to promise us to talk about this Pep interregnum or something? What is this about?
Yeah, is it Pep that's finished specifically, or is it the possession-based football that's finished? And where is the evolution of the game going next? That's what we're talking about post-Pep, on Pep's style that's been around for 15 years nearly, really, if you go back to Barca. And that's the conversation. And I'll use the example, Newcastle United, 35% possession, destroyed Liverpool.
Yeah.
So what's that telling you about the modern game and where it's going next? And Forest's success, don't have the ball at all. And those are going to finish. If you want a betting man now, this is the start of Newcastle. This is the start. This reminds me so much of City when we won that semi then we beat Stoke. And then the next season, we won the title. I'm not saying Newcastle will win the title next season, but if they've got Eddie Howe and they retain that squad and they can convince Isaac and just give a little sprinkling of depth, a little bit more in that squad, they could do some wonderful things. Because I don't think anybody else at City, at Arsenal, at Chelsea, and maybe if Liverpool lose a couple of their old heads, next season, you could see Newcastle second, proper.
Yeah, but going back to what I said before, that I think a lot depends on Isaac, what happens to him.
That's what I said. If you keep Isaac, you keep what you've got and add to it, and Eddie Howe can say, we are ready, give us a bit more. We could do some exceptional
That's
things.
why I think if they'll be determined to get that fourth spot. So could it be a great battle between Newcastle and City for that fourth? That's going to be really exciting, actually.
Newcastle would be favourites for me, genuinely. I'm not having a go at City because of my team, but honestly, we're way off it. We haven't really talked about them today, thank God. But we're way off.
What we haven't mentioned, of course, it's apparently very close. They're not putting a date, but the results of the court case against City.
Yeah.
Now, of course, that might mean that even if City got fourth, they might be dot points, and then Newcastle might get it anyway.
We just need an outcome, don't we? It's just it's tiresome, the whole thing. And I don't think it's fair on the league, all the teams. It's not fair on City, but I'm about to say that. Nobody really knows the truth. But can we just make a decision on what is going on and just move forward? Because at the moment, it is leaving a shadow over British football. And it's not fair because nobody, are we saying that the last 8 years we're going to wipe them off as if they never existed? Are we going to say that the whole thing is an utter shambles?
Have you heard any rumours, Dom, when it's going to be announced? No.
Honestly, that side of it, I genuinely don't. We're not experts in that field. We don't really understand it. With 115 charges, we can all sit there. We use it as banter. City are cheats and City are this and City have bought the league. And, there's always going to be those sorts of things. But actually, it's just not good for football because nobody knows exactly where they stand. Nobody. So can we just move forward and let's hope it's soon? So we can all, and it's having an impact on the crowd, I promise you. At home at the moment, we're not necessarily the loudest when it's a bit of a dull game. We've always been a bit like that. We need something to happen. We need an injustice at City to get loud. That's how we are. It's in the DNA of the club. So it's very, very placid because we're sitting there going, are we fighting for fourth? Or are we going to get dot point? What are we cheering for here?
Yeah.
And it's impacting lots of the whole business of football at the moment. But that's the football Premiership for you. It's ultimately managed by people who are not great leaders and decision makers. So let's see what happens. But we do need to, you're right, we do need to deal with that. But on the football field, I promise you now, if Newcastle kick on, they will come firing up to the top four, and it'll be between City and Chelsea for fifth.
Well, when we come back next week, we'll maybe talk about the different patterns of football play over the different decades, if you like, and has there been a dominant pattern and how it has moved on? Because I'm really interested in in that article that you sent, Dom.
Yeah, sure.
The other thing, actually, we talk about is that apparently Altrincham is a Scouse nerve centre for football. Apparently, Liverpool have an office here in the town for a number of their execs who live in the area. So I'm feeling a bit anxious that my hometown now is the HQ for the nerve centre of Liverpool Football Club. So there you go.
There you go.
I picked up on that.
Remember, they don't live in. Remember, none of them live in Liverpool. So
I probably come across them walking the dog, and I'm going to leave you one last thing. So obviously, there's been a lot of redundancies at Old Trafford, and anybody who loses a job anyway is always a regrettable thing. But one of the more bizarre things that they found was that Man United has a body language coach, who apparently is on 175k a year. Now, who I don't know if they pay this person 175k a year, but the claim was that this person's salary a year is under 75k. And they're a body language coach. Now, you sort of think things are going mad in football, but when clubs employ a body language coach, never mind how much they pay them, something's a wee bit out.
I think sports psychology is often that's quite interesting, and I think that can help a lot. But body language, not sure.
I think there's just a few signs that you need to actually make sure that as footballers you need to know, and sometimes you need to display them to your own players to G them up. So I don't know. Anyway, there you go. That is another week on the Theatre of Dreams Extra Time. You've been listening to Don Barrs, Richard Irvine, Rod Maxwell. We'll be back next week talking about more than news, and we'll try to get excited about this international football period. I have to say, it isn't easy to get excited about. Guys, thank you very much indeed. Speak to you soon.
Bye.